Q&A. So this is your time to ask a question. I don't have anybody on here yet. We'll see when they get on. But this is the Q&A portion of the Safari Seminar. So if you have a question online, please ask it, and I will get it answered for you.
All right. As Patty was just telling everybody online, this is the Q&A portion of our presentation.
I don't have the microphone plugged in, so we're going to have everybody, since I screwed up epically earlier.
Not to be confused with the TNA portion that happens in Duetland. Doesn't happen. It's quite the opposite, right? All right. I don't know what we didn't cover that you came here to learn. So this is your opportunity, whether online or here. What is it that you're dying to know that we didn't cover? How do you do X? How do you do Y? How do you do Z? Austin, I know that you're probably not our most recent novice winner, but probably you're the most recent one here in the room.
Dusty.
That's
Novice
right.
women.
Novice women.
Right
The
there.
first novice women winner ever.
Is anyone going novice women tandem aluminum? Novice women? No? Novice.
That
Who's all
shows
going
why you
novice?
shouldn't do that.
Lots of novices. Okay.
All right. So, questions or corrections or even words of amazement, this is the time for it. Go ahead.
How do I find a partner?
How do you find a partner?
I'm a beginner, so I'm looking for somebody willing to do that. With a beginner or?
I think probably the easiest thing to do at this point, number one, if you're paddling already, show up to races. The Spring Break Open is in a month, not quite a month, 3 weeks.
Correct.
And then the MAC races start. So find somebody that will paddle with you during those races. And you're going to start meeting other people. There's other people in this room, I'm sure, that are doing that. I'm just a Facebook lurker, not a Facebook user. But
So we have some forums. They're
Right.
called ATX Paddlers, Austin and vicinity. HTX Paddlers for Houston and vicinity. DTX Paddlers for Dallas, Fort Worth Metroplex, and the Martindale Athletic Club. And I was saying earlier, it's not a club, it's not like a location. It's a Facebook group of people who live in this San Marcos Martindale area. If you ask on there may be someone else looking, but join those.
I would say from what I look at is the MAC page, the Martindale Athletic Club, probably tends to be the one that catches the most folks. And I could be wrong, the ATX page sometimes gets pretty crowded. But the MAC page pretty much stays specific to racing. And in Texas, racing generally means the water safari. So those are the places. I mean, stand up and raise your hand and tell them, you're looking for a partner right now.
And someone I thought posted on ATX the other day, yesterday. So join the Facebook group.
So that's one way. But yeah, the only way you really meet people with this, other than on the interwebs, is to show up to races. Mind you, there are racers that get a reputation for being standoffish. What you find out is most of those guys are actually pretty shy. But if you ask questions at a race, there's somebody who's going to answer it. Maybe wrong answer, but they're going to talk to you. Not really a wrong answer as such. Did you have a question, or you just? I do that all the time too. I'd be in class, they'd be like, "Jay, you have a question?" Now what? That's the rest of my arm here.
As far as your light is concerned, are you mounting it to the boat or fixing it, or is it like hanging?
The question is how to mount the light. This is a very good question about
You have a
lights.
headlamp here? So, if you look, it's got this little swivel hootenanny on the. Man, do people still say hootenanny? close enough. So headlamps are generally used just to, either on a portage or to find your way around in the boat. You know, you're looking for your Snickers bar or what have you. You know, and matter of fact, I don't ever put my headlamp on my head, unless we're on a portage. I just hang it around my neck because that's really what I'm using for. And if I'm going across the bay at night, I hang it off the back of my shirt as my white light. But these are Ram Mount is the name brand that I know. It doesn't mean it's the only one, and it's these kind of universal joint ball mounts. And so, I mean, feel free to come take a peek at it. But good question.
And if you go to the races, you can possibly see others. The Mach 4 is the night race, so it's at night. Even if you don't.
Any Mach race, go to Mach 4.
Mach 4, because you'll be in a race condition in the dark. You'll start in the light, you'll be in the dark. But you can look at everyone's different lights at that point, and you still have enough time before safari.
Yeah, the Michael P. Simmons Memorial Night Race is probably my second favorite race at this point. You know.
Yep, catfish at the end.
If I have to, you know, like I have to say I can only do one race in that month, I'm going to do the night race. If I hadn't trained all year, but I'm going to race one race, I'm going to go do the night race because it's bonkers, man. In a good way. I don't mean like things are going haywire. It's just.
Yeah, big shout out to Caitlin Miner. If you look on the TCKRA website, we have a list of all the races that are coming up with information. So just tckra.org.
So when you were talking about seat padding, I was thinking about it. One thing to cut in the back of your seat in the padding is a V notch. You'll see a lot of the race boats will have that, and that's to relieve pressure off your elbow. And so that, depending on how your body's made, that I will not do a scenario without a notch in the back of my seat because I have rubbed through my skin with that.
If you like, I can show you a scar.
Drain holes in there.
That's not specific.
I mean, do you?
I don't know.
No. I just know people that have put drain holes in their seats, and they had hickeys on there.
Yeah,
The water.
We don't want to know how you knew that, but that's okay.
the original Sawyer seat that most of the bucket seats are based off of had large holes cut into them, and for some reason everybody just kept putting those holes in there. It doesn't offer any support. Generally, the seats drain well enough to begin with. I know what I wanted you to talk about is spray covers.
Spray skirts.
So before we get on spray cover, seats, I see a lot of new people, they're like, man, you know, my lower back hurts, let's put more padding on. Or, oh, my legs are falling asleep, put more padding on. At that point, you want to rip all the padding off and get the angle of your seat correct. Because if your seat is off, like 2 washers, it will throw out this whole side of your back. So you may not notice that until you paddle 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hours. So that's where those longer runs come in. So get the seat angle correct, which hopefully your boat, whoever built it, got it correct. But, you know, a little tweaking makes a big difference. Same thing as like how far back or how far forward. Some of that comes into preference. So get that angle, then put your seat padding on.
Really good point. You know, I take every boat that I race and I put it in the smoothest water I can find without anybody in it, and I put a level at every seat mount to make sure that it's level left or right, and then I always make sure they've got a little bit of forward lean to them. There are some people who actually prefer the old bucket thing, but you know, I think they're just setting themselves up for failure at some other point. And that was really good. Oh, there was one year that we had one guy who was convinced that the boat had a right-hand lean or a left-hand lean, I can't remember. I mean, just like, we're leaning left, and of course he was big enough, he cocked the boat, and then the rest of us are leaning right, trying to correct it. And there's nothing that's going to make your back hurt than fighting your partner on trying to keep that boat level. And I put 2 16th-inch washers under the right-hand side of the seat, or left-hand, whichever side, to change that angle, and he never complained about it again. I mean, it is pretty minute how, you know, especially those of us who are not young anymore, we're set for too many hours doing this. how sensitive that gets.
So my friend Sandy Yonley would bring washers and the multi-tool to adjust that in a training run. After we would paddle for 2 or 3 hours, she's like, I need another washer. So we pull over, put that washer in there, paddle another 2 hours, and kind of get that dialed in. This time of year, not in May. That one in May, you've got it figured out. Spray skirt. So who here does not know what a spray skirt is?
Oh, I know what it is.
Everybody knows what it is? Okay, just a quick summary in case anybody's online. It's a piece of ripstop nylon that goes across the whole boat with the cockpit you sit in. It's made out of 1.9 ounce coated is what I use. If you make your own, they're not all equal, so test it. The quick test is you can breathe through your spray skirt, and if no air goes through it, you put it up to your mouth and you blow, no air goes through it, then no water's going to go through it, it's good. If you have a spray skirt and it's been in your garage for a couple of years, pull it out, and you may use like what you use on your rain fly for your tent, like a Scotch guard, and recoat it. So that goes even for our old safari racing friends to pull that out and try it before the race. So that's your quick.
And if you need one built by an expert, she's taking orders now. That would be Holly or Patty.
Don't wait the week before the safari.
Because she will not get it done for you.
You're going to get a spray skirt.
How deep do you put your lead in the seat wall?
And the seat, about that size. And then how deep, it depends on the seat. Sometimes I've cut the seat itself, but if I have a carbon seat, I don't want to compromise the structure of that. I normally just do, if I have 2 layers of foam, I cut it on the first layer of foam.
Yeah, you're just trying to get that last little bit of pressure off.
Like that.
And that's something, you can take a knife on the training run with you and
Yep.
figure it out as you go.
Any questions from everybody watching on Facebook?
One thing I would add to the spray cover thing is it's like anything that's built to take tension. At some point, it's been out there long enough that it's stretched out as far as it's going to go, and it's not going to keep stretching. You need to get a new one built.
As many teams discovered in the Bay this
I
year.
was gonna add, you should go to like Staples and put your spray skirt on and flip over and see what that feels like, and also figure out how to get back in the boat in deep water.
And then if you have a new one and it's really tight, like if it's a winter day and it's dry, it's probably not going to fit on your boat, but in June it's going to be hot. You can use that multi-tool and you pinch onto it and you pull it while your partner snaps it, because after 260 miles of paddling, your hands aren't quite there. Tom Jones used to joke that you need a rock with his face so you could kick it, because he used to make all the spray skirts, and now it's like I've been there and people are really mad at me at that point because they haven't slept and their hands aren't working and they can't make it fit. So use those pliers to pull it tight and have your partner snap it on there.
What about soaking it in water?
Yeah, so get it wet. So first thing, get it wet, and then grab the bow and the stern. Like if Jay's on my team, he's going to take one. We're going to do the ends first. It took me 10 years of doing the safari before I figured out it goes on a lot easier by doing the 2 ends first and then snapping it into the middle. And if you lose a snap, it's in a rough bay, it's worth securing that. Either have an extra snap in your boat before with a screw, or use like baling wire or something like that. So it doesn't, because without the snap there, it's going to fall into the boat. Just because that's what happens.
I'll give Jeff Block credit for this. A number 6 screw and a spare snap and a number 6 wing nut can do amazing things for replacing that. Another thing you can do is you can take your multi-tool and poke a hole in it and run one end of a zip tie out and through where you just poke the hole, and take another zip tie and zip it down to hold it in place. But you don't want to be without a snap in a rough bay. You don't really want to be without a snap in a relatively rough bay.
And it's worth, go out and paddle the bay when it's rough. I've noticed a lot of safari racers and my friends who are like, we're not going today, it's rough. And I was like, no, train when it's rough and hope it's smooth during the race. Because the race isn't over until it's over. And
Annika's smiling. Look at Annika smiling back there. Annika, one of the youngest competitors, are smiling. Yes. She's had 2 rough days. 2 rough days.
Don't do much good with, our training out there.
Good.
When you're talking about rough bay? Like, what are you talking about?
I don't know, about 3 foot swells is what they would call it on the different pages. 3 feet doesn't sound like much, but that's 3 feet plus all the chop and everything that goes with it. It's interesting, Chris and I had this conversation. Most of us that have been at this a while have gotten very complacent about the bay. Holly just said this. It's like, oh man, we went down to practice the bay, but it was smooth. And just like Holly said, a smooth bay doesn't teach you anything except for how to get across, where to go as you're going across it. But there's an app, that's the cool thing about all the apps and whatnot on the smartphones. There's an app that tells, I can tell you what the wind speed is going to be, or pretty close to it next week, because it's got the prediction out there. So, if you decide that you're going to go the week before the prelim, just pulled out on my backside. It's like, this is when we're going to go practice the bay. And you look at it, it's like, waves of 0.5 feet, probably that's a pretty smooth bay. You're not going to learn anything. But you look at it, it says 3 feet, and you get out there and you let it beat the snot out of you, you're going to figure out how to stay in that boat. And I'm going to tell you how big a difference all that can make. This year, had the finish line been at the old finish line before we moved to Swan Point, there would have been a completely different first and second place finisher. So it had everything to do with being able to get across that rough bay.
And going across the rough bay, if you haven't practiced bracing, Kristen apparently learned how to brace in the Safari a couple of years ago. But when that wave comes, you can keep that paddle flat on the water, and you can come down on it. And if that wave's coming, you're paddling. The wave comes, you put your paddle down, and you can ride the wave and then go. So that's something to do. If you don't practice it before, you're not going to do it well in the race, and you can play games with your teammate on like, okay, randomly try to flip me out of the boat, so it becomes instinctive on bracing. So something worth figuring out now.
We have a few videos. 2 years ago, I was on the seawall and I videoed the terrible chop when my husband and daughter were walking their boat. And so there is some video evidence out there so that you can kind of see what the boats look like. The Yeti video kind of shows a rough-ish bay finish.
Yeah, actually Bob and I were talking about this earlier. There are a lot of water safari YouTube videos out there. Now, some of them are very, very amateurish, and some of them are just random shots of stuff. But there's a lot to be learned by seeing what somebody else has done, or is doing, what have you. And then there are some pretty good examples of what not to do too. But it's there, things like I would think the bay is a pretty good one. I think Sandy has.
The drone video. Sorry, we forgot
yeah.
to say that earlier in the social media. Sandy Yonley got a drone. She's one of the social media and photographer. And so she's been getting some pretty impressive drone videos. They're getting up there. They're shared on some of those forums, and maybe we'll share some for people. But that was the video you were seeing just now. So we're getting more and more.
So pretty neat stuff.
Is there a bay race this year?
No.
There's something that's on the TCCRA calendar that's being organized by an individual. So you can check that out.
There was a Calhoun's to the Bay race.
The Bay Rat Race is Erin's. She puts that on just so everybody can kind of be together for safety to go across the bay.
It's probably not so much a race as it is an organized training run.
Yeah.
If I had to guess.
Not a bad idea. Any other questions? Any questions on Facebook before we finish up? Again, my apologies that we had issues and we missed lights or pumps, I think, so.
Oh, I've got issues, Patty.
I know.
It's a little different ball of wax. Well, guys, unless you have any final questions, thank you very much for coming. I hope you learned something. didn't get it to the point where you feel discouraged about doing this. The first time that I ever asked about doing the water safari, my roommate at the time had won it 2 years prior. And I said, man, what do you need to do this race? And he looked at me and said, an overwhelming desire to hurt yourself. And quite frankly, I've lived by that way too much through the years.
But you have lived.
But I have lived, and pretty much all of the best friends I've got are somehow attached to this race. I live in Martindale because of this race. And I drink at Duets because the race got me to move to Martindale. So if you need something to do, Duets is open, and you can buy me a margarita, but just stay out of my seat for that.
Yeah. We'll be posting these videos on YouTube, and for the sections we missed, we do have prior years if you want to watch those. Please follow the Facebook page and the website for more updates as we get closer to the race. Registration begins tomorrow, so get your number and your team captain ready to go. Thanks again for tuning in for the 2024 Texas Water Safari Seminar from Martindale, Texas.